Let's get all the junk cleaned out from underneath the sink. Let's get the old faucet assembly out from underneath the sink. And then we're gonna get onto this new assembly. I didn't want to flood the bottom of my cabinet once this thing got going in, so I've kind of made this little contraption here. So we're gonna open this door and we're gonna put this fabric tablet in it, just like that. And now we're gonna pour water into here. And then when this pops up like that, the valve is closed. And it at least turns the water off to your filter assembly. That way your filter assembly isn't causing more water damage. So this is pretty cool. Whoa! Holy cow! That happened really fast. We're talking within 3 seconds of that tablet getting wet. Look at it. It expanded that tablet enough to close that valve lightning fast. That is a really, really cool feature. And now, of course, here you go. It's just a big piece of fabric. Let's install the new faucet. So basically, this goes above the deck, this goes above the deck, and then below the deck, this washer actually has a recessed fitting in it. I'm going to show you why that is. It helps center it in the sink opening. So your sink will have an opening. You can use this for a soap dispenser or whatever else. If your sink doesn't have an opening, you're gonna have to drill a hole for that opening. Underneath that, we've got a series of washers to help lock everything together. To figure out which way is open or closed, I'm just gonna blow in this. So up is off and down is on. We can crawl underneath and put all this on the bottom. Come up here and get it all nice and square and straight and true with the world. To get it to hold itself in place, you can find things to put behind it. Next up on the list is we're going to install our mounting screws that the filter assembly is going to hang from. And I've went ahead and marked here on the side of the counter where those are going to go. I'm going to use these screws at first. These are just really tiny screws. They do a really good job of starting the hole for me. And then once the hole's started, I may put some larger ones in there. I kind of like how these are going in. I think I'm just gonna stick with these. Sometimes you never know the type of material on the side of the cabinet. Sometimes the cabinet siding material is very, very thin. Another thing you'll notice too is we haven't used a single power tool on this whole install. It's all very basic hand tools. Screwdrivers, crescent wrenches. About the only reason you would need to use a power tool is if you had to drill a hole in your sink, you would need to drill that hole out. My old setup, the filtered water went into this T and then split. And this line goes down into the floor, so that way all of our ice in the house is crystal clear. If all you're doing is the filter assembly, you won't need all of this extra stuff. There we go. Fitting these things in here is a challenge. That's a lot of hardware to fit underneath the sink. And so it's gonna be a tight squeeze. It's gonna be kind of right next to the garbage disposal on the edge of the sink, but we are moving it from one side to the other just because the space works out like that. And I was able to get my bladder tank to sit back in the corner. So with the filter assembly on one side and the bladder tank back in the corner, it frees up all the bottom of the cabinet for more storage space. So that's always kind of nice. So here is this leak detector assembly. And it may be hard to see on camera, but we have one that says in and one that says out. We want to respect those and make sure that the supply is coming into this one and then out of this one into that one. The reason why is the way that this valve operates and closes off. If you got these backwards, it may not actually shut off the flow of water. And as we saw earlier, this thing functions really fast. So make sure that your floor of your cabinet, the bottom of your cabinet, is dry before you stick that thing down in there, because that would be a problem. This is our incoming water line. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this off and get a new edge on it. That way there's no sharp edges or anything else. We're gonna push that down into the inside of things. And again, make sure you get it all the way pushed in. Now we're ready for our supply line to come into the other side of that. Another thing I'm gonna go ahead and do, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my bladder tank installed in here. This will let me hook my drain line back up on my kitchen sink because we had to take the drain line out to get the bladder tank in and out of there. So now the bladder tank is going to be able to easily sit back there in the corner, and we're good to go. Now, one thing I do want to point out with these bladder tanks, it doesn't really matter which direction this valve is facing because the tubing is so flexible, you can make it kind of go anywhere. But you do want to maintain access to this valve on the front of the tank. You might need to add air into that valve from time to time. Now that that's in, I can go ahead and replace the P-trap. So those P-trap tubular fittings, they're just hand tight. It's nothing fancy. Next up, let's mount our filter assembly. We got a whole lot of hoses and stuff hanging off of here, but a lot of this was color coded, so it made it easy. It's just 4 tubes. The yellow one is going to the tank. The red one goes to the emergency water shutoff valve. The black one is going to go to the drain, and then the blue one coming down from the faucet is going to connect right into there. You guys are about ready to see just how tight this all fits in here. It is very snug, but snug is good, especially if it's keeping everything out of the way. And we're actually touching the disposal a little bit, but that's fine. One other thing that you want to make sure you do when you install these is you want to leave room underneath the bottom. You don't want this installed on the floor of the cabinet. Whenever it comes time to change these filters out, you need to be able to unscrew the filter and drop it a ways to slide everything out. We're ready to start connecting some things. The most difficult is definitely going to be the tank line. So I'm going to trim this one a little short. You can use a utility knife for these or just a pair of tubing cutters like this one. When you're cutting it, you want to avoid a smash cut, where see how I'm pinching it really bad and then it cuts? You want to avoid that because now you're left with kind of a lemon-shaped pipe, and that lemon-shaped pipe is now pointy on both sides. So instead, as you're applying pressure to your cutters, roll the cutters back and forth a little bit and just slowly apply more pressure as you roll, and now you're left with a much smoother cut. This is the fitting that was on top of the tank. So this slides right over the yellow tube, and you want it to go all the way over like that. And then you're gonna push the yellow tube into that fitting and then tighten this by hand. You don't even need a wrench on this one. When I say finger tight, I mean really snug, but with your fingers only. No wrenching at all. This tank also has a valve on the top of it, this blue handle here. If the valve is parallel, pointing with the piping coming into the tank, that means the valve is on. And if the valve is pulled over to the side like that, that means the valve is off. We definitely want the valve on. We would only turn the valve off if we're gonna be servicing filters or taking something apart. We're gonna do the drain. The drain is the black tube, and just like everything else, we're gonna be patient with how we kind of run things. I'm gonna go ahead and leave this fitting in, but I will make sure to show you how to do the supplied fitting that comes with it. But I'm gonna go ahead and trim this short here. There we go. The drain on my old assembly was 3/8 of an inch in diameter. The drain on this new one is 1/4 inch in diameter. So I did need to purchase an auxiliary adapter because I'm using my old drain, not my new one. Old drain, new drain, obviously they're different sizes. That's where this adapter is going to come in handy. The adapter pushes on just like everything else, push fitting, just like that. But now I can cut this off, put this in here, right into my old drain connection. So now the drain is done. We have water supply. That was this red tube. Water supply is going to go to the emergency leak valve down here. We're going to trim this one short. Okay, that one's pushed all the way in. So now the last one we have to do is the water supply line that runs from the filter assembly up to the faucet. My situation's just a tad unique because I need to cut a T into that line to run to all of my other equipment. So I'm not focusing on showing you guys too much of my unique scenario with this extra line here, just because it's pretty rare and you guys probably won't ever have to deal with that. I'm gonna run this over to here and get this installed into here. So really at this point we're about done. We need to turn on the water and bleed all the air out of everything. and then allow the bladder tank to fill up with water. So here's my water valve here. I can see water already filling in one of the first, oops, I already got a leak. Let's see what we got dripping back here. So I don't know if you can hear the gurgling noise that's going on or not. You might be able to hear that. That gurgling is water that's already working its way down and into the drain. And it's a lot of air coming through as well. So reverse osmosis filters, they do waste some water. It's called reject water. And basically in the process of creating highly filtered water, there is a little bit of water that ends up going down the drain. And so that's why it needs to be able to connect to the drain assembly like this. As we are turning the thing on for the first time, one of the things that we want to make sure we do is, I've already done it, is we open up the faucet up on the sink. We want to make sure that faucet is open, and we also want to make sure that we don't open this valve just wide open yet, because if we do have a fitting that's not connected or something, we want to be able to catch that before it creates a giant mess. I can hear air working through the system. Eventually, once everything kind of works its way through, we're going to start getting water dribbling out of that faucet up top, but that's going to take a minute. Okay, our air is quieting down a little bit, and now we just started getting water dribbling out of that faucet up there. What you're seeing with the speed at which the water is coming out of that faucet, that is about how fast the filter assembly can produce water. Now it'll do that all day long, all day, every day it'll do that. But obviously it would take forever to fill a glass of water at that. And so that's where this bladder tank comes in. We close that faucet and now all of that water starts filling into the bladder tank. The bladder tank acts like a storage reservoir. So you can come in and get a couple of glasses of water, and then while you're drinking that water, it's refilling and making it for the next one. We're gonna go over the factory drain connections for this. If you're gonna do this, you would need a drill. What you have is you have a clamp that's going to clamp over an 1.5 inch tubular drain line. Now you can see just by holding it like this, once it's all the way clamped, it's actually kind of lemon shaped. So what that's gonna tell you is that when you clamp it on the line, you're actually gonna have a little bit of gap in between the edges of each side of the clamp. You'll take a drill bit and you'll drill about a 1/4 inch hole in your drain line. Now, you want to be very careful at where you drill that hole. You have your inlet to your P-trap, you have your P-trap, and then you have your outlet to your P-trap that goes into the wall. What you are looking to do is you want to drill this on the inlet side of the P-trap, but above the P-trap. Do not drill it on the outlet side of the P-trap. The reason why is on this side of the P-trap, there's sewer gas. On this side of the P-trap, there's not. And the last thing you want to do is create a condition where you can get sewer gas in contact with your highly filtered water. Or you could even do it on this metal drain here if you wanted. This is the inlet of the P-trap, this is the P-trap, and this is the outlet of the P-trap running down this way. So like this is my dishwasher drain here. It ties in through this branch fitting on the inlet of the P-trap. Once I drill the hole in there, then I take this foam gasket and I peel the back of it off because it's sticky, and I apply that gasket inside here, and then you line this hole here up with the hole that you've drilled either in here or in here. You would put the clamp assembly together, and then they give you these nice bolts. And then on the back side of this clamp assembly, if I can show you that, is you don't even need a wrench to hold these bolts. It's got a hex cutout in there, so it holds the nut for you as you tighten this thing down. So this is the inlet supply valve that they give you. And what it's designed to do is, I'm gonna use this one as an example. This is actually a hot supply stop, but it's clearly visible. So I can use this one as a pretty good example. So what this would do is you would turn this supply stop off, just like that. You would take a wrench and take this supply line off the top of the stop. Then you would take that same wrench and screw, see there's an O-ring fitting inside there. you would screw this down on top of that supply valve and get it nice and snug, not over tight. We're dealing with plastic fittings here. You don't want to get them too tight. So you would get that nice and snug. Then you would take that same supply nut and line that you just took off of the supply valve, and you would screw that supply nut and supply line right on top of this. And then all you have to do is close this valve and your sink is back in working order. But now you have the connection for the branch line that you need for the filter assembly. You would want to install this on the cold line, on the cold inlet side. But that would be if you don't have a dedicated valve like I do. So we are in and leak free everywhere as far as I can tell. When you install these things brand new out of the box, it does take probably an hour or so before that reservoir is completely full of water. Once it gets full of water, you're probably not gonna run out of reverse osmosis filtered water. Yeah, still getting a lot of air out of there. With a brand new filter assembly, one of the filters in here is a carbon filter. And when you have a brand new carbon filter, as things get dislodged in shipping, the water can have a little bit of a gray tint to it. There's nothing wrong and there's nothing harmful with that or anything else. We are gonna flush that out of the system, but you could drink this and it would not hurt you a bit. And to prove it, I'll drink it. It's not harmful, it just looks a little bit different because it's loose carbon that was floating through the system as it was getting shipped. So nothing wrong with that. One of the things that we want to do is we want to test the total dissolved solids of our tap water, and then we want to test the total dissolved solids of our new filtered water. So let's do the tap water first. The kit included this total dissolved solid tester. Take some tap water, and then we've got the unit turned on. We're going to set it down in there. And we are looking at total dissolved solids of 227. Let's check and see what the total dissolved solids of our filtered water are. Still quite a bit of air in there. We still have a little bit of that gray tint too. Again, this thing's only been installed for 20 minutes. So now we take this and set it down in there. So we went from 227 off of our tap water to 11 off of our filtered water. That is the importance of drinking filtered water. So if you guys want any more information about this new Aqua 5-stage reverse osmosis filter, check on the description in this video, and there's gonna be a link in that description to where you can purchase one of these new Aqua 5-stage reverse osmosis filters. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, go ahead and do so. As always, it's our goal to bring you plumbing videos in a way you've never seen them before.